A modern influencer is someone who influences, right? So that means anyone that has some amount of influence. Like I know they were speaking on stage about even if you influence one person, you're still an influencer. It's just a matter of like what scale of an influencer you are.
So I think one of the things that Digital Communication Network is really good at is identifying these broad topics that are going to appeal to people across different disciplines. So whether they're in the business sector or the media sector, or whether they're students, or whether they're perhaps affiliated with some governmental organization. The reality is that any idea is only worth something if it can be communicated and communicated well. And in this world at this time, when we're thinking about the marketplace of ideas, it's critically important that truthful stories, that stories that are done in the interest of common values are the ones that rise to the top. And so I think, whether it's folks talking about influencers or whether it's people talking about the importance of fact-checking and how to do that on different platforms, or whether it's thinking through the importance of story, how story connects people in a way that sometimes just facts do not.
We've always believed that the internet is a good thing, that the internet will make the world democratic, free, transparent, and will create the space for discussion and conversation. But the fact is that the bad guys, dictators, tyrants also knew how to use technology, how to use internet against their opponents, against freedom movements. And why we talk about bad influencers, to understand what is their motivation, what is their behavior, to make the prevention of influencers, of bad influencers, more efficient. So we want to discover who are good influencers, who are our allies in fighting for a free democratic world, and to understand who are bad influencers, to understand how to prevent them, how to stop them from distributing fake news or propaganda, let's say.
Responsibility is necessary. The moment you are saying something and putting something out there that affects someone else's life, or if you're able to affect someone's perspective on something, you have a certain responsibility.
The media environment in which journalism exists, the media environment in which marketers deal with, the world in which we live is completely different. There is now so much competition for attention that you have to take an entirely different approach. You have to meet people where they are and engage with them where they are. This is further exacerbated by the fact that you now have access to false narratives, to conspiracy theories, and fake news in a way that didn't exist before. Those stories can spread faster now than ever before in history. And it poses a lot of challenges. And those are the things that we have to figure out how to solve. Those are the issues that we have to get to the root of.
I believe that media innovation and media entrepreneurship are change makers, and that redefine the public sphere as well the market sphere.
There's a lot that a group like this would bring to the table, because you're connecting people with different ideas, people who live in different countries with different market environments. All of these things come together in a very unique way that I think DCN does, and I think this organization does it so well.
There are a number of people that are involved with the organization who I know well and who I would consider friends, and whose careers and projects and passions I've watched develop, which are just really amazing.
It's very difficult to identify and to understand who is who. I am here to learn and to understand the process, the methodology, the way of understanding who is playing which game, who can help in my fight, in my struggle for democracy in my country, and who is struggling against me and who supports dictators. And I understand that only activists, my friends, and journalists, my colleagues, will not be able to do this change alone. They need support of IT people, of programmers, even of politicians. But we need to discuss together.
It's almost a bit like a summer camp, but for adults. And so, yeah, there's no substitute for being there, seeing a person, talking face to face, hearing from people about what's really going on, and getting beyond bigger headlines or big geopolitical trends, because there are important things happening in all of our countries. And if the only thing that we're learning about the events are coming from like big sweeping picture, 1,000-foot view, then we're missing some of the texture.
I think what's really missing these days is a lack of energy in traditional legacy media to figure out what's going on outside. So, at Splice, our view is that it would take far too long to turn around legacy media. Instead, we should be looking toward supporting media startups. And if you look at what's being done by creators, by influencers outside of traditional newsroom structures, you see the big opportunities that are available to them. Right at this conference, we've heard so many great ideas around how this stuff is done, and I think there's just so much that can be learned from smaller influencers, smaller media startups that are moving at a far bigger, faster rate.
Just the whole influencer space in general is sort of democratizing power. Like before, in order to have power, generally you needed to have money or you needed to have connections. Whereas now you have all the tools at your fingertips to build an audience and to gain that power from the ground up. And yeah, it's really important what we do with that power. But the ability that we can have that power for the first time in modern human history is the most fascinating thing to me, and that's what really excites me and motivates me to see where this is going and to be an active participant in it.
The reason events like this are important is because of two things. One, I feel like it is a responsibility to share the things you know and to engage with the world on a larger scale. It would be very easy for me to stay in Atlanta and deal with issues within my state or within my country. But by coming and getting involved in events like this, it expands my horizons. I meet people I would have never met before. I meet people that are dealing with challenges very different from mine. And when that happens, that's sort of where the root of innovation comes from. Innovation doesn't happen when you get like-minded people. Innovation happens when you have differing views, differing people, and diversity, and you have an exchange of ideas. And that serendipitous interaction, that me sharing my story, you sharing your story, that's how innovation happens. And that's why I come to events like this.